Okay. I think we'll start. So we have a packed program, so let's start on it. Welcome everyone to this lecture session hosted by SBE DTU. It's on the topic CRISPR-Cas9, and I guess you all know that because otherwise you won't or wouldn't have shown up. We have some speakers today. Two of them are from DTU and one from KU. And I know in between all of you that there's also some from other places than DTU, so that's just great and amazing. It's an honor to host an event like this with this many people. It's just great. So thank you for coming, all of you. Before I pass on the microphone to our first speaker, I'll just mention that we have fruit and snacks. Maybe I can see you have been there, but if you haven't, there is. Please feel free to grab. And it's not mentioned here in the program, but we will have just some short breaks on the way, and we will also have time for questions. I will go around and pass on the microphone, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll give you the microphone. Then I think I'll present the first speaker of tonight, Christina, who is currently doing a postdoc at DTU Bioengineering. And she's going to give us an introduction on the topic. So please welcome Christina to the stage.
So yeah, as people said, my name is Christina, and I'm a postdoc here at DTU Bioengineering in the eukaryotic molecular cell biology group. And for the past 2.5 years, I've been working with CRISPR-Cas9 on how to utilize this system in filamentous fungi. So I'm going to talk a bit general about genetic engineering because I think that's necessary to gain an appreciation for what you can actually do with CRISPR-Cas9. So we have a number of challenges when we want to genetic engineer basically anything. So we need to get the DNA into the cell. We also need to get the DNA inserted into the genome if we want it to be a permanent addition and to be replicated in further generations. And we need to get it into the correct location for many purposes. And it's especially this last part, getting it to the correct location, where CRISPR-Cas9 is really useful. So I'm going to introduce very shortly about DNA repair because it's kind of central to appreciating the system. So at least in eukaryotes, all cells with a nucleus, we have two major DNA repair pathways. One of them is non-homologous end joining, but if you have a DNA double-strand break, the two ends basically just stick together. The other one is a bit more elaborate, called homologous recombination. And in this pathway, the cell actually looks for a homologous template. So a piece of DNA that looks like the DNA you have at the break site. And this is pretty smart because in diploid cells, where you have two copies of each chromosome, then if one chromosome is broken, then you have a sister chromosome that can direct how the repair of the chromosome should be fixed. So when we're talking traditional genetic engineering, again we're relying on these two DNA repair pathways. So if you put in a piece of DNA and it integrates by homologous combination, non-homologous end joining, it can basically go anywhere in the genome. You don't know where, you don't know how many copies, but it can be quite useful if you want to insert a gene into your cell. What's going on? Oh well. The other option is if the repair happens by homologous recombination. Then suddenly we can do a lot more elaborate edits. So if you have repair by homologous recombination, we can start doing gene deletions, replacing a gene with another gene. We can do small point mutations very specifically, and we can insert genes into locations we actually know without risking inserting a gene on top of another gene and destroying the first one. And in general, when we talk about whether an organism is easy to engineer or not, one of the key factors for this is whether it tends to do repair by homologous recombination or by non-homologous end joining. So when we then add the double-strand break to the mix, then suddenly we have a lot more options. So now we can suddenly use non-homologous end joining to actually destroy genes, because if you make a cut in the middle of the gene, then there's a high chance that you will lose a bit of information, a few base pairs at the break site. And if that happens, you're basically destroying the protein that's coming from that gene. You can, again, facilitate insertion of genes by non-homologous end joining and have it go to a site that you know. And just like before, with homologous recombination, you can suddenly you can do gene deletions and gene insertions. But especially interesting is that now doing gene removal of genes is actually an option, even if a non-homologous end joining is your primary repair pathway. And it is quite important because in many higher eukaryotes, like fungi, plants, mammals, non-homologous end joining is by far the most common repair pathway that's chosen to repair break. So now I'm going to start actually to talk about CRISPR. It was originally found as a bacterial and archaeal immune system, which is used to defend against viral attacks. And it stands for clustered regulatory interspace transdromic repeats. Do I have any light? But it refers actually to this pathway called the CRISPR array. So if a bacteria or archaea have survived a viral attack, it can take a piece of the viral DNA and incorporate it into this CRISPR locus. And each piece of viral DNA is interspaced by a repeat. So then if another attack is happening by the same virus, then we have some of the Cas genes processing this array, transcribing them into free CRISPR RNAs. There's also another piece of RNA called the trans-activating RNA, and these two can go together with a gene called Cas9. And then if the virus sequence matches one of the invading viruses, and it's followed by what's called a protospace adhesion motif, which is usually a very short sequence. For the most commonly used CRISPR system, it's NGD. But if this sequence matches and it has the PAM sequence, then the invading DNA gets cut and it's then degraded. And the interesting thing is that this system is actually inherited from one generation to the next. But also what's really nice about this is it's really a simple system. So the two pieces of RNA, the CRISPR RNA and the trans-activating RNA, can actually be fused together to one single chimeric carrier RNA. And then together with Cas9, you basically have a gene editing system. So, and each time you want a new target, the only thing you have to change is the 20 base pairs. And then, of course, you have to ensure that in your target genome, it's followed by NGD or another PAM sequence if you're using another CRISPR round. But the really great thing is it's so modular, so only 20 base pairs have to be exchanged each time. And because CRISPR is not the first gene editing technology, there's at least two, maybe three, depending on how you look at it, that was before CRISPR. One is zinc finger nucleases, where you build synthetic nucleases by fusing zinc fingers, or each zinc fingers bind 3 base pairs, and then you fuse them to a nuclease. A similar system called TALENs for transcription activator like effector nucleases is also based on making synthetic nucleases, but these TALENs where each tail binds a single nucleotide and then fuse again to a nuclease. But what's different here and what's significant is that for zinc finger nucleases and for TALENs, each time you have a new target, you need to make a new protein. And that's when it gets expensive. So, for instance, for zinc fingers, we are talking about 10,000 of kronas Cas9, depending on the system, you're talking about a few hundred to a few thousands. And that's really what makes the great difference between CRISPR and the previous technologies. And now I'm going to talk a bit about how CRISPR is used in different systems. I guess better specify that when I'm talking microorganism, I'm talking eukaryotes. I think Morten is going to talk a bit about prokaryotes later. And yeah, so the yeast Saccharomyces is one of the most utilized organisms to make cell factories, cells that produce a specific useful compound, and these cell factories can be based either on naturally produced compounds or by taking a pathway for a compound from another organism. But the most commonly used one is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and that one is chosen because it's easy to engineer. So if you give Saccharomyces a piece of DNA, 99% of the time it will be integrated by homologous recombination, so we can actually do deletions, insertions, without having to rely on gene editing technologies such as CRISPR. But even then, in an easy organism such as Saccharomyces, it's still a very useful technology, and it acts as an accelerator. So everything you can normally do, you can now do faster. In my lab, we are working with Phalaenopsis fungi, which are interesting, among other things, because they're producing secondary metabolites, such as antibiotics. They're also using immunosuppressants, statins, the cholesterol lowering drugs also produced from fungi. And compared to Saccharomyces, they're a bit more difficult, and still it's a spectre. So some of the fungi is more difficult to work with than others. But in this case, CRISPR has worked in two ways. It's been an accelerator, like it's in the Saccharomyces in the already easy to engineer open fungi. But it also means that previously, if we want to look at a specific compound, typically the easiest way was to remove the whole pathway. So one of the fungi we can actually work with in an easy manner. But because of CRISPR, we now have a wider choice. So now actually sometimes we are starting choosing to work in the original organism, giving us other options. And I mean, in my lab, I can see it since when I started, we were just working in a single fungi, maybe 2 or 3, and now we are approaching almost 20 different fungi we are regularly working with. It's in mammalian cell cultures or other cell culture systems. CRISPR have an even bigger impact. Because these organisms have even less tendency to do homologous recombination than, for instance, the fungi. And such, if you can't get an edit, if you can't regularly get homologous recombination, you're basically limited to just inserting genes. But by using gene editing technologies such as CRISPR, we are no longer dependent on having homologous recombination to get a gene knockout. You can get a knockout just by end-joining, and that really opens up a lot of more options than you had before. And these cells systems are often made to make therapeutic proteins. So being able to engineer them to a higher degree than you could before, or at least cheaper than you could before, since zinc fingers and tailings still exist, is extremely valuable. Then CRISPR also has quite an impact in animal research. One of the most used animal models, at least when you are talking about doing genetic modification, is mice. And again, mice is chosen not because it's necessarily the best model, but it's because it's a model you can easily go and do genetic modifications in. And even then, before CRISPR, without gene editing technologies, making a single mutation in a mouse often took around 1.5 years. With CRISPR, this process has been speeded up, so now we're talking about 3 months, 4 months maybe. So it's having a lot of impact. And furthermore, since again, we are no longer dependent on having access to homologous recombination to do knockouts, so suddenly you can, because with mouse model you have to, the cell type you're growing and editing is embryonic cells, stem cells, because some of them have a high tendency to do homologous recombination, but if that's no longer a requirement, we start working with other cell types. And that also opens up for making a lot of other animal models. For instance, rats are something much easier text are much easier. This picture is actually made by sailing, but the principle is the same as CRISPR. So the growth hormone receptor has been disrupted, so now you have a pig that rather than weighing 50 kilos as an adult now, weighs around 15, which is extremely valuable if you're using it to model different diseases. You need less space to keep them, and you need less drugs to test. And yeah, there are a lot of new animal models is certainly possible. We also see CRISPR leading into food technology. And here the really interesting part is that the organisms or the modifications we're seeing being made now with CRISPR is quite different from the traditional GMO organism. So the traditional GMO is these transgenic organisms where a gene from somewhere else, typically a herbicide or pesticide-resistant gene, has been inserted into the organism, typically by non-homogeneous engineering, so you don't really know where. You have to analyze your resulting plant or animal. And it falls under the GMO legislation. But the type of edits we're seeing being made now with CRISPR is instead based on typically trying to recreate single point mutations, typically disruptions of different genes, which somehow is beneficial for food production. For instance, we're seeing cattle without horns, because that's a single gene that needs to be removed. And that means at a later point you don't have to dehorn the cattle, which is rather painful. We're also seeing different animals being engineered to have resistance to different diseases. For instance, pigs being resistant to blue ear disease or African swine fever. We're also seeing animals being made to have bigger muscles, which is excellent for when they use meat production. And what's also interesting is, at least in the US, there's actually starting considering many of these organisms as non-GMO and looking at the type of the edit rather than how it's made. In EU it's a bit more controversial, and it's still not settled how these sort of organisms will be treated. But what's important to know is that many of these where the single gene has been disrupted, you can't really see the difference, or you cannot tell by the sequence whether it's a natural mutation or it's been made, because you can actually make these sort of edits without introducing any DNA into the organism, since both the Cas9 and the guide RNA can be introduced in the form of protein or messenger RNA. One of the bit more frightening applications of CRISPR is called gene drives, and it's one of the applications for mosquitoes, so can engineer mosquitoes, for instance, to be resistant to malaria. The problem is then that when you have your engineered mosquito, you have to somehow get that gene out in the population, and the normal Mendelian inheritance, where each gene probably has a 50% chance to be inherited, even if you release hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes, it wouldn't really take effect. But what scientists have done is that not just editing the gene responsible for malaria resistance, but actually inserting Cas9 and the guide RNA encoding genes, and then have the guide RNA target the natural version of the gene, and then repair it by using the mutated version of the gene. And this way you can actually ensure a trait being inherited 100% of the time. So that means even relatively few mosquitoes in this case can take over the population. And I mean, right now the technology is there. It's more a matter of ethics and legislation and concern for what we actually do to our environment. But it's certainly possible. And even more severe, it's also possible for instance to make mosquitoes that's, well, females sterile, or fish that only get male progeny. So it can actually be used to wipe out entire species. And then you also have to consider if these sort of gene drives can exist spread across species boundaries. We're also seeing CRISPR being used in humans to some degree. One and a half year, that was the first case of a paper where a Chinese group used inviable embryos and tried to edit these, and it did work. Around this year, UK scientists also got permission to start doing gene editing on embryos that was going to be destroyed before maturation. And as shortly as a little more than a week ago, we saw one of the first human trials where CRISPR is used in cancer patients, where T cells in the immune system were taken out, edited to be more aggressive towards the cancer type, proliferated, and then put back into the patient. And we are probably going to see a lot more of these sort of trials in the near future. Of course, there's some limitations to CRISPR. One of the key things is that if you want to edit a trait, you need to know what gene is responsible for this trait. Or many genes can be responsible, and you need to know all of them. And so far, our knowledge of the genome is far from complete. Another issue is precision of the system. So what we see is sometimes even the specificity of where CRISPR's code is based on these transbase pairs, but sometimes it cuts other bases. Maybe if just 17 or 18 of bases matches, that can be enough to facilitate cleavage. And that means that you can end up having mutations other places than intended. And still we have one of the original cells. We need to get DNA into the cells, and in many systems that's not a problem. We have solved that. Other areas, for instance plants, it certainly works, but there's certainly also room for optimization. So yeah, there's quite sort of a few areas of controversy for CRISPR. One of them is the GMO legislation, which is not up to speed because it didn't consider the current legislation is based on the insertion of foreign DNA, and that's not necessarily the case of CRISPR. You also have the potential for germline editing to think about. You might probably see media headlines about cyan babies, especially when we're talking about the gene drives. There's the risk of unintended release of modified organisms. And not the least, CRISPR right now, the battlefield of an ongoing patent battle between the Broad Institute and the UC Berkeley, which also probably going to go on for quite a while. And with this, I will sum up the presentation. So, CRISPR-Cas9 is not the only one, but one of a few gene editing systems, but it's by far the cheapest and simplest of the systems currently available. It works by making precisely defined DNA double-strand break, and these breaks can be manipulated to make specific modifications in basically all organisms, as long as you know how to get the DNA into the cell. And especially important is that knockout, so destruction of these can now be made independent of homologous recombination, since it can be made by non-homologous engineering, which is really a game changer in a lot of fields. And with this, I will finish off the presentation, and thank you for the attention.
All right, thank you, Christina. So, any questions from anyone?
How is the mechanism that inserts the gene after it repairs itself, after CRISPR has set this thing?
So when we are talking about gene insertion, we are basically trying to fool the cell to think that the DNA part or the DNA being inserted is part of the cell's own DNA that needs to be repaired. So when we're talking non-homologous end joining, it's a bit random. When we're talking homologous recombination, we ensure that by having flanking regions. So the edges of the DNA piece you inserted actually matches the edges at the break site.
Any further questions?
Thank you for your talk. Can you comment a bit how can you prove the on-site modification by CRISPR so you can make it more specific, even more specific?
There's a few ways it's currently being done. One of them is that you can make a few point mutations in the Cas9 gene, which actually enhances the requirements for specificity. Another way is that you actually shorten down the guide sequence, so rather than using 20 base pairs, 20 nucleotides, you go down to around 70, as little as 16 can work, because then the native system has a certain tolerance for mismatches, which actually makes sense because the virus can mutate and then it's nice not being too sensitive. But if the guide RNA is shorter, then the requirement for specificity is higher and then you see less off-targeting.
Okay, so I think we'll just have 3 minutes of a short break. Please, be back at 3 minutes so we can continue. Thank you.